Yo, what's up guys? It's Nick and welcome to the final and complete guide for my His Scattering Calamity Oracle build. I've been playing this build for the past 4 or 5 days and I can definitely say that it is the most fun build I've played in Path of Exile 2 so far. I've managed to do all content with this version of the build. I've put a ton of currency and time into crafting pieces of gear for it, and the build is at a point now where the final changes would be extremely expensive and I probably won't be making any more updates on the build, but that may change. I will let you guys know, but this will just be a summarized version of everything, including the last video. Just keep in mind that this is a super expensive showcase and should be served as an aspirational POB. So a lot of the gear is unrealistic for a lot of people. So please do keep that in mind. You can play this on a lower budget version. If you look at my previous video, that character is on a much cheaper setup. So if you're looking for a cheaper alternative, then please go have a look at that video as well. It should be quite useful for you. So let's start with going over the important pieces of the build. So this build will not function without the Covenant, or at least the way that I've set the build up. You need a Covenant that does not have the skills gain a life cost in addition to mana cost, and you need one that has spell damage leached as life, and ideally you want some life cost efficiency. The build scales its damage through mana stacking. We are an Archmage, so it's important that we get some form of life cost efficiency because our spells are going to scale up in cost exponentially. So you will need this, and of course you need a Unborn Lich staff. You need to try and get one that is a level 20. That gives you the level 20 His Scattering Calamity. You can unveil these yourself, but unfortunately, since I made my last video, the level 20 versions of these staffs unidentified have shot up in price. So if all you can afford is a level 19, then you can just settle on a level 19 version of the staff, but just keep in mind, you're going to be one support gem short, and I'll tell you which support gem you should drop. You're looking for these mods on the staff. You're looking for spell damage per 100 maximum mana. You're looking for increased elemental damage, and you're looking for percentage chance for spell skills to fire 2 additional projectiles. If you aren't able to hit the 2 additional projectiles, it won't be the end of the world. The build will probably feel a little bit clunkier, but the build will still function. The main thing that you need is the tag that scales the spell damage with 100 mana. The rune sockets you want to put in here is Sakawal's Rune of the Sky for 5% of damage as extra of all elements, and then a +1 all spell skills because scaling gem levels is the best way to scale damage. So in order to play this build, you're going to need the staff, you're going to need the Covenant, and you're going to need a form of instant leech, which you can get from a Heart of the Well Diamond. You can see here mine has got 14%. I'm going to go over the skills and the skill rotations. This is a one-button build, except for the curse that you occasionally have to press. So going over the skills and some of the changes. Feast of Flesh, you don't really have to use at any point. I just have it there because it's part of the staff. You basically just press the button and you consume a corpse to regen life and mana. You can use it in emergency situations if you need to. Here's our bread and butter skill, His Scattering Calamity. We're running it with Rakiata's Flow, Life Tap, Compressed Duration, Zenith 2, and Swift Affliction. Basically, this build functions around reducing skill effect duration so that the hovering time for His Scattering Calamity is basically instant. By running Swift Affliction 3 and Compressed Duration, you're able to heavily reduce this amount so that the projectiles fire off rapidly like you see here. It's important to note that when you expand your skill, you're going to be able to see a bunch of extra information over here. You want to make sure that you get your Wellsprite hover and launch duration to this. You need to make sure that it is as low as you can possibly get it, and as far as I'm aware, this is as low as you can get it on an Oracle, because the lower this number, the better, because it's the amount of projectiles you're going to be able to fire out per second. So scaling your spell damage, scaling your cast speed is great from a visual point of view, as it's going to shoot out really quickly and it's going to feel really great to play, but you're always going to be limited by this launch duration. So you're going to be shooting 5 projectiles every second when you have this amount of launch duration. My cast speed is currently at 0.2 seconds. I've got cast speed on basically everything, and I can definitely say that it makes the build feel really snappy and really, really good to play. It's more of a quality of life thing because it also affects your cast on crit setup, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily essential. If you are running a level 19 His Scattering Calamity, I would recommend dropping either the Zenith 2 or Swift Affliction. It depends on what you need. But try dropping Zenith 2. You will lose a bit of damage, but it should still be enough to carry you through maps and pinnacle bosses. So we've got Sigil of Power on weapon set 2, which is giving us level 24 Sigil of Power. You basically press Sigil of Power, it creates an area, and it just gives you a flat amount of spell damage. Because we don't use mana, we can't increase the stages, so it's going to be stuck at 16% if you've got a staff which has +5 to skill levels and level 17. You can obviously get a better one, and it's going to give you more. Life Remnants you get from the Covenant chest piece. We're running Remnant Potency 2, Harmonic Remnants 2, and Katal's Rejuvenation. This basically just gives you the Blood Mage passive where you're picking up Life Remnants, and it's going to keep your life topped up. Cast on Crit. Now, this is the setup I'm running for maps. There is a slightly different setup for bossing. If you want to kill bosses really quickly, there's a different setup that I use. So we're using Cast on Critical with Comet and Arc, and then you've got At Louis Bloodletting, Zenith 2, and Boundless Energy 2. So I'll explain why we use Arc in a moment. It's mainly just for clear, but we are also creating elemental infusions or lightning remnants or lightning infusions. So we're gaining the additional benefit of this where the skill will chain 18 times and do 200% more damage. And it's got a permanent uptime essentially. And Comet is just the best single damage elemental spell in the game. So unfortunately, although it is a meta skill, we do need to use it. Elemental Weakness is our curse, of course, with Ritualistic Curse, Spell Cascade, Heoxy's Fulmination, and Life Tap. You basically never press this unless you're just doing a map boss or pinnacle boss. Some people have asked whether Rakiata's gives you less damage. The answer is yes and no. Obviously, you can only run one copy of Rakiata's. Rakiata's is in my Scattering Calamity, but obviously Comet and Arc will still need the penetration. So with the example of Uber Arbiter has 75% elemental resistances. Elemental Weakness will inflict 65% negative reduction, which means Arbiter will have 10%. So the Comet and the Arc will be hitting at 10% elemental resistances, whereas the Rakiatas will penetrate that down to 0. I said there was a different setup that I use for bossing on Cast on Crit, and that's Living Bomb. So what you can do is you can put Living Bomb in here very easily before you go and do any boss that you'd like to kill. You don't need to do it for map bosses. The build already has too much damage. And you basically just stand on top of the boss and you just hold down left click and the boss will die. Living Bomb will proc multiple times, which will give you fire infusions. And when you consume a fire infusion on Comet, you're basically doing double damage because you're gaining damage as fire. So that is the setup. Archmage obviously is how we're using mana to scale our damage. We're using it with Diala's Desire and Lightning Mastery. We've got Siphon Elements, which we are able to fit in. You can see we've got quite a lot of Spirit. I'll get into how we have so much in a moment. But we're running Siphon Elements to generate Cold, Fire, and Lightning Remnants. You pick them up all the time in maps because we're constantly shocking. We don't manage to proc Ignite often, so you will occasionally get a Fire-empowered Comet, but not all the time. But you will get a lot of Lightning Infusions. That's basically a permanent uptime. And that's going to help with the Arc and carrying the clear throughout the maps. We're running it with Remnant Potency 1 and Fire Mastery for the +1. And then Mana Remnants, which gives us a little Mana Remnants, which give us mana with Harmonic Remnants 2 and Remnant Potency 3. We are a Mind Over Matter build, so our mana is our health bar and our health bar is our mana bar, effectively. Let's talk about the gear pieces. I've already gone over the staff and the chest piece. What I've got in my chest piece is mana and resistance. I'll show you all of the socketed runes I have in all my other gear. Helm, we're using the Vertex. Obviously, a +4 to all skills is the best, but those are like 300, 400 divines at the moment, and I've been putting my currency in elsewhere. It is a giant damage increase if you're able to get even just a +2 would be quite big for your damage, and it does have crit hit chance and then energy shield, which gives us more mana as well. In terms of rings, I've got a mana breach ring, which I sanctified yesterday and managed to hit 9% max mana. So you can see that we've got mana, percentage mana, maximum life, cast speed, all res, and 1 resistance. You can use 2 breach rings, or you can get one really good one and use a Calandra's Touch as a cheap way of maximizing your efficiency. but you do want to get as much mana on the ring as possible, so I can definitely recommend using breach rings. You want to prioritize, obviously, like I said, mana. Life isn't that important, but it obviously helps because a higher life pool means you're going to be able to rapid cast Scatter and Calamity more frequently if you're not leeching. In terms of amulet, you are wanting a solar amulet with at least T1 spirit, and it needs to be a solar amulet so that you have the implicit spirit as well. We anoint fast metabolism so that life leech effects are not removed when unreserved life is filled. So that's basically overleech for those of you that don't know. We've also got flat mana, and we've got +3 all spell skills, cast speed, and all elemental res. Ideally, this life would be percentage mana, but you're looking for basically spirit, flat mana, percentage mana, all spells, and then you could go for double crit if you're already res capped, or you can go for cast speed res like I've got here. It's entirely up to you and what you need. We've got 3 socket gloves here with 60% increased socket effects and T1 crit damage bonus. Unfortunately, this doesn't have any flat mana, but it does have 145 energy shield, which gets converted to mana through Eldritch Battery. These were self-crafted. They're not the most difficult thing to craft. If you would like to know how I crafted these, I can definitely let you guys know. But essentially, it's giving us life cost efficiency through Tech Rod's Gaze, which is making our Scatter and Calamity cost less. And then I've got some mana socketed in here to give us extra mana. You can also insert things like cast speed to give yourself more cast speed, or resistances to fix your resistances. The glove spot is very flexible. You can use basically any gloves you want. Just try and get as much mana or crit damage as you can. Boots are just standard boots with energy shield and triple resistances. You can get ones with mana on them. These are just leftover ones from an old build I had. And you definitely want to try and get a Rune of the Chase so that you are moving around maps quicker. And then I'm using the second one for lightning resistance. And then I've got myself an Ingenuity with 2935. You can pick these up relatively cheap. Doesn't have to be 2935. It can just be like a really well-rolled one. You can look for them on trade. They're fairly common. And you definitely want to run one that has 3 charm slots. I'm using a Bleed Immune, Freeze Immune, and Ignite Immune charm, which helps with survivability because one of the biggest threats in this game is ailments. You don't need to use Ingenuity. You can use Headhunter, but Ingenuity is way more consistent, and you don't steal any annoying modifiers that will cause you to blink into packs of mobs and accidentally get yourself killed. We'll start from the start of the tree. So we're playing Oracle. We're using the Paths Not Taken, which gives us access to the Oracle's tree, which has a bunch of cool nodes like increased damage if you've triggered a spell recently, increased energy gain. We've got crits over here. We also take Entwined Realities, which says that non-keystone passive skills in medium radius can be allocated without being connected. We make excellent use out of this by taking keystones here, 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 and here to get a lot of value and cheat out a lot of points. And then, of course, the lesser harm into forced outcome, which gives us inevitable crits. Looking at the tree, we make use of weapon set 1 and 2. Weapon set 1 has all of our reduced skill effect duration. Weapon set 2 has all of our increased effect duration and curse magnitudes. If we take a look over here, we've got all of this reduced skill effect duration. Over here, we've got increased skill effect duration. Over here, we've got weapon set 1 for crit damage bonus and increased mana cost of skills. This doesn't do anything to us because our skills have a life cost anyway. Over here, we've got the crit nodes, and we take the jewel socket over here. Moving up the tree, we take more crit over here. Just keep in mind that this is using weapon set passive 1. It's important to not get confused when looking at the tree because we do use a lot of different points for weapon set 1 and 2. You can see me flicking through here. So just try not to get confused. Moving up along here, we're taking Wild Surge Incantation, which does nothing but does let us cheat out a couple of things. This is on both weapon sets. Increased damage if you've triggered a skill recently. Meta skills gain 20% increased energy. And meta skills gain 20% increased energy. We get 4% increased spirit. And we get 40% increased spell damage with spells that cost life. Then on weapon set 2, we're taking increased area of effect over here. We take Mind Over Matter because we want to be Mind Over Matter. Our mana is our life in this build, which lets us take Calibration, which is giving us more mana. It's giving us crit chance and elemental damage if we've crit recently, and we're basically critting all the time. We take a 5% chance to gain Arcane Surge. And then we've got the jewel socket over here with the Heart of the Well Diamond. This is what mine looks like. You're basically looking for double crit, instant leech, and then damage as extra. Moving along here. I take Black Flame Covenant, which allows us to take Sudden Escalation and Empowering Infusions, as well as Stormbreaker. So because we're using Arc and we're using Living Bomb on bosses, we are constantly applying all ailments, and we are consuming elemental infusions all the time. So this has a permanent uptime. So we've basically always got 30% increased spell damage, and we're doing 60% increased damage on enemies that have ailments afflicted, and we are constantly inflicting ailments, as I said. And then obviously just increased crit hit chance and cast speed is just generically good. In case some of you might be worried that because we're converting our fire damage to chaos damage, that the living bomb will still not work. If you look at the wording on living bomb, you only have to deal damage equal to the ailment threshold in order to get a fire infusion. So this definitely works. I have tested it, so please don't be concerned about that. We take reduced cast speed and spell damage over here. We take more crit hit chance over here. Weapon set 2, we're taking skill area of effect, and we're taking curse magnitudes over here. Pathing up across here, we take Eldritch Battery, which is going to convert our energy shield to mana and double our mana costs, giving us quite a lot of increased mana, which obviously scales our damage quite a lot. We take Lightning Quick for the lightning damage and cast speed. We take Raw Mana for 8% increased max mana. And then we take Arcane Intensity for 3% spell damage per 100 mana. Int node over here, reduce skill effect duration over here, very important, don't miss these. And then increase skill effect duration on weapon set 2 so that our curses and our sigil of power will last longer. Here we have an important jewel so that you have enough spirit to cast all of the persistent buffs. This is an Against the Darkness with plus 12 to spirit for each notable, and then small passives grant mana. You can get better ones that give you, each notable gives you damages extra. Those are extremely expensive though. This one works just fine. And you can see that we take turn the clock forward, which gives us spell damage and prod speed. Turn the clock back, which gives us spell damage and reduced prod speed, so they kind of cancel each other out. We also take mental alacrity for cast speed, mana regen, int, and then tempered mind, which is crit damage bonus, strength, and obviously the physical damage doesn't really do much for us. And then lastly, we take invocated efficiency, which gives us triggered spells deal 40% increased spell damage, but we're basically forcing as much spirit here as we can to fit in all of our extra persistent buffs. And then over here, Careful Assassin, we're just taking generic crit. The other normal jewels look something like this: spell damage, crit, elemental damage, int, and over here, spell damage, crit damage bonus, recover mana on kill, and elemental damage. Do try and get at least 2% damage leached as mana. But that about covers everything, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed the guide and it's helpful for you. If you've got any questions or if I've left anything out, then please feel free to let me know in the comments below. We'll probably be streaming for a couple of days this week, so be sure to follow me on YouTube and on Twitch if you want to catch those and come say hello and ask me questions about the build. Other than that, guys, hope you have a great day and hope you drop a bunch of divines. Cheers.